Hello, my name is Platted. I'm new to all this, just trying to learn, wanted to document the process. I like to play a lot of video games. Today I'm going to be playing Sea of Thieves because I'm trying to grind my way out to Pirate Legend. This will be the first time I've ever done it before, so I'm really excited to document and share and show that with you all. Anyways, let's get right into the video. Alrighty, at the start of this voyage, I wake up in a tavern that I don't recognize. So I decide to take a little look around, and I notice there's a microphone on stage. I decide to run on over to it, play around with it a little bit, have a bit of fun, but not for long. Because today is about business, and the business is becoming a pirate legend. Checking some barrels for loot, standard Sea of Thieves starting procedure. Now you may notice throughout this video that you might hear me talking during the video, but really quietly. I had streamed this content initially and I just didn't have my microphone set up properly, and I have not the skills to separate those two audios from each other. Something I wanted to do today is world events. I'm grinding out to get my Pirate Legend, and the one that I haven't hit yet that is the closest is the Merchant Alliance. Merchant Alliance sucks. I hate doing them. But with a couple updates ago, they just changed it where you could do raid voyages, and those are like dive to world events that yield you treasure specifically from that trading company that you dive under. So, I go and set up my emissary flag, and I prepare to dive to the voyages before I realize that I've got a lucky voyage ready for me. And so I end up deciding to do that instead. Voyage selected, I'm ready to get on my way. But it was around this point that I started noticing I was having a small issue. Now, I didn't mention it in the tavern, but throughout the entirety of the time I've been on this island, I've been attempting to open my menu. Now, I've been playing on my keyboard up until this point, and I'm not too familiar with playing on PC, so I figured I might have just had the wrong button. After attempting several times, I got a little discouraged and just decided to switch to my controller because that's how I started playing Sea of Thieves, and I'm much more familiar with it. At that time that I switched to my controller, I noticed that the issue wasn't that the button wasn't working on my keyboard, it was that the button wasn't working, period. And I had no choice but to forfeit this game, leaving it to reset my whatever glitch was causing this. But that had some unfortunate consequences. Those unfortunate consequences being that when I loaded back into the game, my lucky voyage was gone. Damn. Classic rare encounter. Regardless, there was business to be done. I decided I was just going to go back to doing what I initially wanted to do in the first place, which was completing world events. They're fun, they make for good videos. I decided that's what I was going to do. But I needed to hurry. That storm was rolling in, and I did not want to be caught in it. I hate storms in Sea of Thieves. I hate them especially when they strike you with lightning. I was beyond baffled at this. I didn't even think I was even in the storm anymore. But all is good. Just gonna make our way to this world event, which was a skeleton fleet. I suck at naval combat, so I wasn't very excited for this fight. To top that off, I had basically no supplies. I didn't loot the island at all the second time I spawned in. So I was going in with just what they put on your boat. which you'll find out later is, well, not enough. Pulling up to this world event, I'd spotted a sea post and figured this was a good opportunity for me to try to snag any amount of supplies that I could get. Uh, Unfortunately, though, I was a little closer to the world event than I initially thought, as right as I was getting ready to swim back into the ocean to catch up with my ship or take a mermaid, the world event started. Thankfully, getting right back on my boat before the first ship got the chance to spawn, I was capable and able to just start laying into them. Now, I know that these world events are tuned based off of what ship is inside of it, and so this particular skeleton fleet was going to be the easiest the AI could produce in the game because I was a solo player on a sloop. But I still struggled a little bit, as you'll see later. But this sloop went down with basically no fight at all. It was right about here where I was wondering why it looked initially like the sloop had sunk, but it was still shooting at me, and I thought once they sunk, they stopped shooting. Regardless, sloop did sink. Took the time to repair my boat and turn around and fetch those supplies off that ship before the next one could spawn. Stopping to get these supplies, I was actually kind of in a little bit of a panic when I was picking up this loot. See, I actually haven't done a Skeleton Fleet World event before up until just this very one. And all the ones that I had done before that were fleet fights were phantom ships, which I also really don't like playing against. So I didn't know how much time I had to pick up this loot before the next ship would spawn. However, I ended up having more than enough time to get all the supplies I needed out of the water, even with the waves being a little bit annoying and me being really terrible with the harpoon. All of that loot loaded up onto my boat, it's time to get prepared for the next ship to spawn, which wouldn't be very long at all. Getting my boat moving, I noticed that that skeleton ship spawned really weirdly. It'll be kind of a trend throughout this fight that this particular skeleton sloop just does weird shit. Its opening move in this ship's first act of aggression was to perform a complete 180, chase me down, and for some reason ram me with their ship. I don't know what this AI is thinking, but I made one crucial mistake right here as I decided I was just going to go down and repair it. But by the time I was done repairing everything, that sloop had managed to line up on my left side and just start laying into me. I was panicking at this point. They were shooting me up and I was getting on those cannons and just missing all of my shots. I don't know if it's just a skill issue or if I'm too far out to reliably hit things. Either way, I knew I needed to start trading blows, and trading blows prompto, or I was going to get caught in a fight that's just me down there fixing my ship and burning through all my wood. Seeing how close the skeleton ship got to my ship, I saw an opportunity to chuck a couple fire bombs on it. After just catching the mermaid, I realized I was about to sink. So I quickly whipped out my bucket while this skeleton ship was tearing holes through me, and I picked up a couple buckets just to save myself a bit of time. Tried shooting back, but I just kept missing all my shots. They were too far away, and I wasn't able to land anything reliable at that distance. So I decided to transition to just fixing my ship, get this water out of here, start patching up whatever holes they might have put in me while I was unattended. After spending some time repairing my boat and drifting a little closer to Reapers, I kinda noticed that I wasn't hearing boss music anymore. And then this happened. I was at a loss for words, but at the very least, the ships were gone. I was out of their range, and I didn't have to worry about getting lit up by them while I'm trying to fix all the stupid mistakes I made. Either way, I turned around, fixed everything up, and headed back towards the event, determined to finish what I started. Re-entering the world event zone, I could not find that sloop anywhere. I don't know if it sunk or despawned, but I knew that I was going to have to fight a new ship. I just didn't expect that new ship to be the Galleon. I understood at this point that I was now on the last ship of the fleet. Technically, I was supposed to fight and defeat 3, but I never got the opportunity to claim the loot from that second one. So, hopefully this third ship would make it worth my while. And quite the fight it was. With supplies dwindling and brain cells dwindling even further, I was curious as to whether or not I would actually be able to take down this ship all by myself. Over the course of this fight, I was presented with the broadside of this galleon a number of times, and while on some occasions they would take the liberty of lighting me up and turning my ship into something of a Swiss cheese on the ocean, other times I've been able to land really good shots on them, with them not trading more than the blows I usually delivered. Smashed right up against this galleon. I knew it was my opportunity. With all the skeletons off of their cannons on the side we were on, I started loading up my scatter shot and blowing holes in it. But I was full of plenty of holes myself, and that galleon was getting himself in a position to start laying down the fight on me, so I needed to hurry up and repair and get moving soon. That way I could keep up the chase and make sure they never get a spot where I'm stuck. It was about at this time I was thinking about how fast that galleon was. I couldn't fathom it. I certainly couldn't keep up in my sloop, especially all by myself, trading out between patching holes, steering the ship, and actually firing cannonballs at them. I felt like I just couldn't keep up. Now all patched up, I was ready to chase down that galleon. I wanted blood, and nothing was going to satisfy me other than the loot dropped by that very ship. Although, I still didn't really have a game plan. This galleon wanted to play around those rocks, which would have been great for an experienced sloop player because it is a significantly more nimble ship, but I just didn't have that capacity, and we ended up just playing Ring Around the Rosie on this rock for a while. It was at about this point that I realized this galleon had me right where he wanted. Faced right up against his broadside, about to turn around, he was about to lay a ton of hits in on my left side. But the island seemed to block him off, as he decided to turn around on his right. I wanted to capitalize on this mistake and land some shots in. He was a bit far away, but luckily my aim was good enough, and I started hitting him. I also noticed some barrels off on the left to me. Knowing that my supplies are dwindling, I took a mental note of that I would likely have to revisit them once my cannonballs run out, so that I could continue this fight if I couldn't sink him in the next couple of shots. Now at this point, I probably should have decided to either turn my ship right or raise that sail all the way, because by leaving it down a little bit and turning left, I ended up in another situation where I crashed into the island just as I was fixing my ship. This was a very dangerous spot for me to be. If that galleon turned around and decided to lay into me while I was fixing my ship from this crash, I could have been way behind. Luckily, the galleon didn't provoke, and decided instead to run back over to the event area, which meant I got the opportunity to fix my ship and chase him back down. I also got the opportunity to run by those barrels I saw earlier and grab a couple, so that I could use them and their supplies to continue this fight. Back in this fight now, I once again have to save myself from almost slamming into a rock before getting ready to fire right back at him. I was hungry. I was ready for blood. And I wasn't doing too good. But I started loading up that cannon, and man, were these shots clean. Honestly, this was probably the most satisfying part of this whole entire fight. It was just me hitting these shots. Balancing between trying to continue to land hits on him and trying to make sure I didn't sink my ship, it was a tough battle indeed for me. As he started pulling in closer, I knew I was going to get presented with a bunch of cannonballs right on my right side if I couldn't manage to outmaneuver him quick enough. But my ship was screaming at me, and I thought that I was a lot worse off than I ended up being. But the time that I spent fixing the ship gave them just enough time to come up on me and lay the hurt down. But for some reason, they just didn't shoot. I couldn't figure out why. As difficult as this galleon has been to take down because of its maneuverability, it really hadn't landed that many shots on me up until this point. And I really didn't know why. Once again, having turned out of the battle zone and having the ship turn away, I had to once again fix myself up and go chase him down. With a whopping 7 cannonballs to my name, I desperately needed to find some barrels in the water so that I could replenish my cannonball supply. After dancing around with the galleon a few more times, I was able to come by and replenish my cannonball supply with these barrels I found in the water. Setting it off to the side because I couldn't pull everything off at that exact moment, I prepared myself for the fight I was about to have. Woo, I was getting ready for it now. He had seen me and was locked on to me. and I knew that this time I was gonna finish him off. You can try to catch up, buddy, but I don't think you're making it. Pulling back around, this time I was ready to sink him. Arming up my cannons, inventory full of cannonballs, I just started laying it on. And I was getting hit after hit after hit after hit. It was like a symphony to my ears. I fought this galleon all day, and he still had tricks up his sleeve. I didn't know what that ball was at first. Looking around, noticing my anchor and none of my cannons were tied up, and then I realized it was a rigging ball. Rather annoying, but it wasn't that difficult to undo. But this would be its demise. As I pulled up, I continued to lay into it. I fought that galleon throughout the night, and well into the morning. I was ready to finish this fight off. At this point, I was just kinda sick of it. Kept spinning around, landing hits, running away. Over and over and over again. I fought him tirelessly until finally this happened. Boys, we had sunk him. And even if I really didn't know it at this point yet, and had more pressing matters, that with my boat filling up with water, that ship was done for. And it was time for me to go collect my rewards. Finishing up getting the last of this loot put on my ship, I was feeling pretty darn good about myself. And ready to take on the next world event that came my way. So, I had me a look-sees at what was available and what was around. I noticed a chest of fortune, or a Reaper's bounty chest, a Reaper's bounty chest on the map, but I wasn't really concerned about that. I wanted this Ashen Winds event. See, I really enjoy doing Ashen Winds events. I know they're pretty simple, and to some people pretty boring, but at least for me and myself, they are easy to complete, simple, fun fights, and yield pretty good reward for the amount of effort you really gotta put into it. So I decided to make my way there. Pulling up on this Ashen Winds event, I was ready to fight. I noticed two things on the beach over here, one of them being one of those bone and blade skeletons. I decided I was going to pick him up first. Although, it seems to me like he was kind of useless. Throughout the entire fight, I barely even saw him. The next item I went over to take a look at was a skull. I decided to set it down and grab it later when I was picking up all the loot from the fight. The fight was exactly what you think it would be. My throwing knives made really quick work of her, running through all three of her stages very shortly. I only got lit on fire a couple of times. And what made the fight even easier is right here in this spot. She'd try to jump at me, and what would end up happening is she'd get stuck on this rock that's right in front of me. And then she just kind of stayed there, allowing me to keep reloading my throwing knives and throwing them at her again. Of course, like I said, it just made my job even easier. And then soon enough, this big bad red roof went from this to this. And man, that sure was easy. Now with all this loot on the beach, I just had to put it all on a pile and load it onto my ship. While finishing putting everything up into a pile, these two dumbasses decided to spawn on me. I was ready to take them down, but I really didn't want to deal with them. Oddly enough, though, after going to drop this cannon off, reloading and turning around, one of them just disappeared. Don't know what happened there. Anyways, killed off this last guy. He was dumb enough not to even drop a gem for me. Complete waste of time. Now with all this loot loaded onto my ship, yes, including the chest of rage, I was ready to head to the nearest outpost and sell 2 world events worth of loot. I was definitely excited about it. On my way back to the outpost, I spotted a skeleton sloop. I really shouldn't have fought it, but to quote myself at that time, no guts, no glory. But the me of then could never have anticipated how terrible of a decision this ended up being. Right as I'm getting ready to engage with the sloop, the chest of rage decides now's the time to pop. And the sloop hits me with an anchor ball immediately. I am a sitting duck and my boat is on fire, and right now I am feeling a little bit panicked. If you can't tell from me scooping water out of nothing. I lift my anchor and get ready to fight. I knew I could take down this sloop. I knew it wouldn't be very hard for me at all. But I never, and I mean never, could have anticipated what this fight had in store for me. I felt like a pirate legend already. I was winning this fight. I was going to send each and every one of these skeletons back to the ferry, and no one could stop me. Or at least that's what I thought. But as I loaded this next shot, well, I'll let the clip explain it for me. Hey, fucking excuse me? They had a bomb? They had a black powder keg on their ship? Oh, all my shit is sunk. It's all sunk. That's crazy. What the fuck? Yeah. They had a black powder keg. I didn't even know sloops could spawn with black powder kegs. But, ship sunk, loot gone. I didn't know what I was gonna do. Hope that I spawned nearby at least. Yeah, that ship sunk. Looking out over my pile of loot and all the progress I had made up until this point, I was furious. I couldn't believe something like this had happened to me. I wanted to get that loot back. I couldn't let all of this progress be in vain. But I didn't have long. Loot floating in the sea on the Sea of Thieves sinks after a certain amount of time and can't be retrieved again. If I was going to get that loot back, I would need to be quick. So I hurried over to my ship, plotted my course, and made like the wind. Thankfully, the trip back was uneventful, only being a couple islands north of my location when I sunk allowed me to get here with most of the items still on the surface, though things were sinking fast. If I wanted to get most of my loot back on my ship, I'd have to go down there and start picking loot up before it finished sinking. That way it would reset the timer and start floating back to the surface. Oh my gosh, so much stuff. I knew I wasn't going to be able to save all of it, but if I could just save most of it, especially the more important items, like my chest of fortune, if I could just save those items, I feel like I would walk away with something. As frustrating as this situation is, this is the Sea of Thieves. Sometimes things get taken from you. Sometimes you lose things. Sometimes random bullshit happens that makes no sense. But, even though that's the game, we still love to play it. Dude. So much stuff. It's It's like the Pirate Lord always says. It's not about the treasure you can sell. It's not about the gold. It's about the treasure you can feel in your heart. The friends, the adventure, the chances. That's what being a pirate's all about. So I take the last of my loot, that which I can save, put it on my boat, and leave the rest to the ocean. Like a peace offering to the seas, to give them a piece of what they give me. Now, with all the loot that I can muster loaded back on my ship, there's one last task to do, and that's to go sell it all. I make my way to the outpost, which is thankfully right in front of me, so I can sell my wares and be on my way. Pulling up to the Sovereigns just in time for that chest of rage to almost explode. It's getting there. I gotta say, my favorite part about playing Sea of Thieves is right here at the end, where you get the harpoon at the Sovereigns and you just start loading up all the treasure on the front of your ship. It's just so satisfying. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree. Well, this has been my first video, guys. I really enjoyed making this. I would love to get some tips, comments, things you guys want to see. I don't just play Sea of Thieves, it's just a game that I'm very familiar with, so I like to play it. But I do play a lot of other games, and I'll play anything that anyone's interested in. But, yeah, I mean, just let me know. I'm gonna close out here now. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.